For my project, I chose to attend the African American Museum in Philadelphia. There were only 2 exhibits that were open when we went, but they were both very interactive. In the first one that we went to, there was a timeline with specific important events in African American culture, and we were able to click on different topics that we specifically wanted to learn more about. The different topics included things like work, culture, family, religion, laws, and the exhibit itself shined lights on different people and articles that corresponded with the different topics, and it really helped paint a picture of the African Americans' overall life throughout history. The second exhibit was probably my favorite. There were a bunch of monitors that looked like doorways, and there were different people inside of them, and you could ask them different important questions about their life, and they would elaborate. This was a great way to learn more about different people in history that were just as important but not as common to learn about. The one that stuck out to me the most was a woman named Frances Ellen Harper, and she was the first African American woman to be published at only 20 years old. And one of the questions was, I'm a college graduate with high school honors. Ask me about my first job offer. She was also a public speaker, a writer, a teacher, and a very well-educated woman. And the best job she was offered was as a seamstress or as a local business owner's babysitter for their children. I chose to attend this museum because I am very interested in African American culture, like how slavery came about and why and what the overall impact was and how they endured and became better people because of it and overcame this overall really tough lifestyle. I have always found it very interesting to learn about because they were discriminated against the most to me, like racially. I really enjoyed this opportunity to take time and go to the African American Museum. I've lived in Philly all my life, but I never just made the time to actually go, and I think it's very important to really just dive deeper into different cultures and being able to recognize the different diversity of cultures that we have in America. And I think that you can gain respect through knowledge, so you can really properly value everything that the culture and their way of life has to offer. And I think that's the best way to grow as a community, and we can really just empower each other to strengthen them themselves, as if you learn more about their individual cultures and you celebrate it rather than just being kind of ignorant to it and just knowing it's there but not really learning more about it and furthering your knowledge on the overall subject, I think is very important. And I'm really glad that I got this opportunity to really reflect on the culture and the values of African Americans and what they really had to struggle through and what they went through, and I just have a deeper understanding overall of how their culture has been used to develop and strengthen them rather than hindering them, because this was a very low point in America. This museum had a very strong theme of liberty, justice, and equality, and this just made me think about our Frederick Douglass reading. There was a certain passage that really spoke to me about this overall museum. It's from Douglass, page 343. It says, "Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty, that he is the rightful owner of his own body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongness of slavery? Is that a question for Republicans? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation, as a matter beset with great difficulty, involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice, hard to be understood? How should I look today in the presence of Americans, dividing and subdividing a discourse to show that men have a natural right to freedom, speaking of it relatively and positively, negatively and affirmatively? To do so would be to make myself ridiculous and to offer an insult to your understanding." This reading was from Frederick Douglass' What to the Slave is the 4th of July. And it just is Douglass challenging the Constitution because he believes that in the Declaration of Independence, they are not extending it to African Americans at this time. And throughout the museum, it showed many different exhibits and drawings and articles of African Americans not getting the same level of respect and different opportunities that other races had at this time. But the whole theme of the museum itself is justice, freedom, and liberty for African Americans over the course of time. So the article that we read was just like a snippet in time, and it wasn't always like this, although there is still a lot of discrimination in our world today. In the other Douglass passage, it talked more about slavery and the constant, really power struggle and the push for the slaveholders to really push their authority on the slaves and for the slaves themselves to try to stay of sober mind while doing so. And I think that all of these people in this museum really just showed how great their minds can be, even though they endured such tough conditions. Like, there was a ton of like artists and poets and writers and lecturers and teachers, and they can do the same exact things that we can do, yet they are held to a different standard than we are. And that just does not seem right at all or fair. And I think Douglass does a really good job in his current time with his like articles to spread this needed awareness on this subject. Going to this museum really helped strengthen my knowledge in the African American culture and their ways of life and how they endured such tough times and still band together and form such a strong culture